Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePoci, your host, and I'm joined by the one and only Ray Merriman this week. Ray, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Johnny. Good to see you. And I know you're in Europe, same as myself. So hope you're enjoying it as much as I am.
Oh, I sure am. You're in the northern part, I'm in the southern part. So I wonder if it's as hot as where you are for it is for me.
It's actually cold.
Okay.
It's cold here. It's probably in the 60s Fahrenheit.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So quite a difference from the southern European countries and a lot of the US states too, where I know it's been record heat this summer. Mars, Saturn, opposition is starting to break up now. But and it was hot here in Germany, but now it's cooling down.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we had that Mars Saturn opposition last week, and that kind of culminated with the peak in the temperatures, it seems.
Yes.
So, well, we did have some interesting geocosmic activity this past week. We had Mars trine Jupiter, and that actually coincided with a significant debt downgrade for the U.S. Treasury. We had Fitch come out and drop the U.S. Debt rating from AAA to an A plus or AA plus. So that was pretty significant. And let's speak to that a little bit, Ray, because, we're in this reversal zone, this intense period of geocosmic activity, a couple of key signatures coming up next week. So what are your thoughts on, that debt downgrade? Because that's pretty significant.
I think it is very significant. I think it correlates, as you mentioned, the Venus retrograde, but I think it also has to do with Pluto going back into Capricorn, where it will be until January, I think.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the problems that were conceived of with Pluto and Capricorn are having to be dealt with again now. And it's going to go back and forth with that. I think the fact that we had a raise in interest rates in the last 2 weeks, we had the downgrade. This is all since Pluto went back into Capricorn. Maybe it'll seem better after Pluto goes into Aquarius, but it's going to go back into Capricorn again after that too.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're totally out of this consequences period of Pluto in Capricorn until we are fully out of that, which is right around the time of the election.
Yeah, well, indeed, these are all things that fall under the domain of monetary matters. And we know that when Venus is retrograde, we're, susceptible to changes in that front. Ray, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Start off with the Dow Jones. We had an unemployment report come out here on Friday, and we actually missed on the jobs number, came in below estimates. And it seems like the markets interpreted that as a more dovish sign, could potentially give the Fed a catalyst to, perhaps pump the brake on additional rate hikes. And that's, that also falls into the category of Venus retrograde as well. So we haven't heard any, Fed governors or any key verbiage come out from the central bankers, but this is a nice reversal up after a pretty sharp 2-day correction in the Dow. So what's your take on equities in the US right now?
Well, first of all, you haven't heard much from the Federal Reserve on that because the unemployment missed the employment report missed its target. But it's significant that they downgraded, they lowered the actual amount of jobs that were created the month before too.
Oh, that's right.
So
yeah.
I don't know the market's taking that into account, that this is not a really good sign, because we're starting to see the employment starting to shrink. It's not as strong as it was, and the appraisals, the reversals of that from the previous month. That's 2 in a row now. That's lower than they expected. So I think this is a warning sign for the market. I think, people like it. The market's going up because they think that gives the Fed room to lower interest rates. But I think it's also a little bit of a forewarning that maybe these recession optimistic people that we're going to have a soft landing, maybe the recession is still out there. Or at least it's not going to be a great growth period during this time. So I think this is a concern for the markets, that maybe they'll pick that up next week. See, the other thing is with the Mars trine Jupiter and the Sun square Jupiter right in the middle of that when this decline happened. And those are two very strong geocosmic signatures that often correlate with sharp reversals. but they're short term. So we got a sharp drop. We may get a sharp rise. We may get another sharp drop now too in the next week.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is a very stable market right now. I think there's a lot of confusion going on.
Well, you mentioned the Sun square Jupiter next week. That's on the 6th.
Yeah.
But what I'm especially watching right next week, I love those hard aspects between Venus and Uranus. We have retrograding Venus squaring Uranus. And, that's actually a great segue into the NASDAQ, since Uranus rules the NASDAQ, the tech heavy index. But I think we need to be on alert for either a break of resistance or a break of support next week. And, we really don't know which one that'll be until we get past that signature usually. So NASDAQ, nice update here. It was kind of leading the way lower. We still have that intermarket bearish divergence signal. The NASDAQ still holding on to its high from earlier in July, whereas the S&P and the Dow both made new multi-month highs last week. So as you said, I don't think we're out of the woods yet for stocks, but any other comments specifically on the NASDAQ?
Well, as you see here, you're getting these little swing trading lows, higher lows, or lower lows and lower highs. So this is a concern too. And I don't think it's too unusual to see when in the early part of Venus retrograde, you're going to get a lot of mixed signals. There's going to be a lot of scenarios. There's many different labelings that can be attached to that. Was that a primary bottom in the NASDAQ last week? It could be. It was 2 weeks down from the high, but yet the S&P and the Dow made new highs last week. So it's certainly not a primary bottom yet over there. Well, probably not a primary bottom because it usually takes 2 to 5 weeks. So I think we're going to see a considerable amount of volatility here, probably all this a month of August, because even after this next week passes, we're going to have the Sun-Venus conjunction that you mentioned before we started talking today. It's the midpoint of Venus retrograde. Then we're going to go into the Sun square Uranus, and then we're going to go into Uranus turning retrograde. So there's a lot of Uranus aspects coming up that affect this market, this NASDAQ, and I think it's going to be pretty volatile for probably the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, let's take a look at an asset that may do well in this volatility, and let's talk about another geocosmic signature that might be important for this market. I pulled up GLD, the ETF that follows gold. We had heliocentric Mercury go into Sagittarius yesterday, so let's talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, so you got a low here. You want to see a low, usually sometime between 0 and 5 days before before Helio Mercury goes into Sagittarius. That was yesterday. Even the futures market went even lower before the market opened today. But the unemployment report, the payroll reports, was actually a little bit positive for the gold market. So if we can get an isolated low here, which you got it in GLD, I guess, but you don't have it in the gold futures yet. So if today's low in the gold futures can hold, and we start taking out today's high, that's going to look very, very good, as if that was we call the major cycle bottom. Okay, your 5 to 7 week bottom. So, you still have a longer term bullish pattern here. The primary cycle lows, the primary cycle highs have been higher and higher. And so with that, there's a very good chance we're going to go back up and see those highs again in this primary cycle, unless you take out the low that began the cycle, which was 1900, back on our triple star reversal date of June 29th. Yeah. So I still like the looks of gold. And even, if you take out today's or last night's movement in the Dow and the gold, that low prior to today was really about a 61.8% correction. That was tested. It went below it, and now it's back up above it. That should be a good sign too if you close in the lower half and the upper half of the day's range today.
It's also worth mentioning, Ray, we had I think Neptune went retrograde on June 30th, one day after this low in June. And that's a rarely key signature for gold markets. A lot of times we see impressive rallies begin a couple weeks after that signature. Ray, I want to take a look at Bitcoin real quick because this market it's kind of been a snooze fest as of late, but part of me suspects that might begin to change in the next couple of weeks here, starting perhaps with next week's retrograding Venus square Uranus. So, consolidation nation, let's call it in Bitcoin. But what's your take on crypto markets, and do bulls still have a way forward from here?
Yeah, I like it. To me, this is just, it's still in a correction phase. It made a new monthly low, but it's not a very deep low. It's more of a sideways, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's in a big congestion nation. Made that low there. And that was also with Mars trine Jupiter.
Yeah.
It's still within the close proximity of the Venus retrograde, and you're coming into Venus square Uranus, as you just mentioned, next week. I like it. I kind of like the idea that might have been the low on Tuesday, and we might start breaking to the upside of this 2 or 3 week congestion.
Yeah. Well,
So it's longer than 2 or 3 weeks, but at least the last 2 or 3 weeks, the congestion zone I'm looking at right now to break out of.
well, if we zoom out, as I like to say, when in doubt, zoom out. Another phrase I like to throw around is the bigger the base, the higher the space. We have a pretty nice multi-month pattern here in Bitcoin that I think could lead to another leg higher significantly in the next few months or perhaps into year end. But my only concern, Ray, is we have some intermediate term cycles in the crypto market, various phases to the 4-year cycle starting to mature. So I don't think this is a market. While I do think there is some more upside possible, I don't think it's a market to really get too greedy in now. If you have positions, maybe let them run, maybe focus on short-term swing trading, but I still don't think it's the type of market where, it's to the moon and, you want to just put all your money in crypto. You should never do that with any trade. But
No.
I still don't feel this is the same market as the same bull market as it was in 2020, 2021. Ray, let's touch on crude oil real quick because, really nice rally. I'm going to pull up USO, the ETF. Really nice rally in crude oil over the last couple weeks here. And I think this all but confirms the intermediate term cycle lows being complete. We talked about that 3-year cycle, that 17-month cycle. It happened right on time. And USO, the low happened back in March, but the continuous crude oil contract made a low in May. And this low happened right as Saturn was going through Pisces. And one of our rules is that we look for intermediate term or greater lows to unfold in the sectors ruled by the sign that Saturn is transiting. And that worked out marvelously in crude oil. So any take on the energy market right now? And, could this be a warning sign that perhaps inflation isn't actually finished?
Yes to the last question.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure, though, we're not going to get a correction here in the next week or two because of the Mars trine Jupiter and the Sun square Jupiter. Those are co-rulers of crude oil, and it's making highs. It looks like it wants to break out as we go into the Venus Uranus. But I still think the Sun and Mars aspecting Jupiter. I wouldn't be surprised if we're trying to make a major cycle top or something like that right here, and we get a pretty good 3 to 8 day decline. And I would be buying that probably right where you got your line. There's where I like to see it. I don't know if we get back that far, but I sure like to see that would be a buy to me. Actually, between the two lows, the lows of this week and the low where you originally had that line. Yeah. Somewhere in between there is what I'd like to see.
Okay. The last market I want to look at very briefly, I'm going to look at interest rates on the 10-year Treasury. Pretty significant decline here. Looks like, this was a major cycle high at the least. As we kind of touched on earlier today, the weaker than expected jobs report interpreted as a dovish sign by bond markets. But if crude oil is going to keep rallying, that's going to put quite a bit of pressure on inflation expectations and is, in my view, is a tailwind for higher interest rates and lower bond prices in time. So, Ray, any last comments on interest rates or bonds before we share some of our announcements?
Only that, again, with Venus retrograde coming into aspect to Uranus next week, that is usually a significant time for all interest rate related markets, including T-notes and currencies. So depending what it's doing in, let's say between now and Thursday, I'd be looking for reversal. Very
good. So, Ray, let's talk about some upcoming significant things for MMA. Before you share the announcement with respect to the forecast, I just want to remind all readers that we will have our monthly edition of the MMA Cycles Report published on the 14th and 15th. And then course 4 of the Merriman Market Timing Academy will begin on the 26th of October. But Ray, you have a special announcement with respect to forecast season. So let's share that with viewers today.
Okay, so next week, Tuesday, August 8th, is the election date that we have picked to launch the pre-publication special for Forecast 2024. You can't order before then, but watch your inbox this week or go to our website, MMAcycles.com, because this week, those who are subscribers or fans of MMA are going to get an announcement of the special discount, special sales we offer once a year. It will start this Tuesday. The special pre-publication discounts for the forecast book. Your best offers are going to be taking place this month of August. So watch your inboxes very closely this weekend for that announcement.
Fantastic. And as Ray said, you can find all of our work, our reports on stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities, and crypto at www.mmacycles.com. I just want to thank everyone for watching us. It's really a pleasure to do these interviews and share our weekly thoughts with you on geocosmics and markets on this channel. Ray, any last words before we take it to another European evening here?
Nope. I'm looking forward to the evening. I'm looking for the rest of my vacation, your vacation, and hope you have a good one, Johnny. And thank you for another good podcast here and YouTube presentation.
Okay.
Keep it up.
Very good. Thanks, Ray. Have a good night. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.